Hello everybody, as you can see on the chart, we dumped down big time over here. This was something like, I think something like 8% drop, and even all the way down here, it's like 10% drop, but it's not that scary, it's not that scary. The big drops usually are around 20-30%. Most often they are around 30% drops, and those are the big scary drops, right? So when you have a big, scary drop down here, that's like 27% down. And they go quite fast over here. This is like 20%, I think, drop down here, 20% drop. This one down here is also 20% drop. Now these are a little bit special drops because these, at least from my understanding, was a capitulation drops down here. So this is a 44% drop, and this over here is a 28. No, it's actually a lot more than 33% drop. I can see that these big drops, 13% is not much. Is not much. Now we are only measuring from up here. We are not actually measuring from all the way from the top, because the top is not actually the big move. We are just measuring these big fast moves. Now even up even this move up here is not that fast, because it goes down a little bit and then it goes sideways. This is a little bit faster move, this is a fast move. So the fast move up here comes from this top up here towards the bottom down here, and that's like 13%. So it's not a big drop, so we can definitely fall down more. Just dropping down 13% does give you some kind of overextensions on small time frames, but in bigger time frames you don't get these overextensions or big oversold levels or something like that. We are a little bit extend, but it can still push down towards downside. So these big moves tend to be around 20-30%, give or take. Depends on where you measure them. This is a 22% move up here. Then we got a couple of these big capitulation style of event moves. This is a 24% move. This over here, this is a 4th of December. This was a huge 30% move, but within 20 and 30%, give or take. Oftentimes small moves are like 20%, bigger moves are like 30%. Then you got this 44% capitulation style events that that drop down big time. So 13% will be dropped down more. Well, depends. So I've been looking at charts a little bit and trying to figure out whether this can be some kind of bottom. Now if you look at this over here on the daily time frame, we are hitting the 200 moving average, and on the weekly time frame we are also hitting the weekly 20 moving average. And will we bounce up here? It does look like there might be a bounce, but I gotta tell you guys that this move up here oftentimes don't do just one leg and then goes towards up. So oftentimes you see some kind of consolidation, some kind of move, and then it continues going towards downside. But we won't talk too much about patterns and how they play out. But right now, will there be a bounce? And there is a very good chance for a bounce. And what I'm looking at actually at the charts, what I'm actually looking at chart is this part over here. This is 1 hourly time frame. Of course, it's very, very tight. And it's a little bit hard to figure out in the grand scheme of things what will happen next, but there are definitely certain things that are happening right now that's showing some kind of bullishness. So where's the bullishness? So let's invert the chart over here. What you're gonna see here, we have a big impulsive move towards upside. We got this exhaustion pattern that broke towards downside. Right now we're going in some kind of consolidation pattern. The reason I inverted the chart over here is because it's a lot easier to see that. A lot more people are very prone to looking at bullish charts, so it's a lot easier to see. So there was the trend that was going something like this over here. That trend over here broke, went down, and right now we are consolidating up here. So there is some kind of triangle over here. We're gonna zoom in on this part over here. But if this is a triangle, and if this triangle over here breaks towards this side over here, we might expect a pump, of course, if we invert the chart back. On the other hand, if it breaks towards upside, I think short term, because this is a short term chart, this 1 hourly chart, we might expect some kind of more dumpy dump. And I'm gonna tell you also where I see that dumpy dump to go to. Now that's this line up here is very important, so we're gonna just extend a little bit towards upside. It's not very precise line, but we're just gonna try to explain a little bit about the feel of the game and how this actually plays out. So let's invert the chart back to right place, and as you can see up here, this looks like some kind of triangle over here, right? And the triangle is quite nice over here. So this triangle will break towards upside or downside very, very soon, give or take. It might be postponed a little bit, it might do another week up or another week down and be become a little bit bigger triangle up here and postpone that, but it does look like the move is going to come very, very soon. So if you do break this towards upside, the big levels are up here. The biggest levels are up here, you know, around 20.3k, give or take. You know, that's gonna also, you can see also these wicks up here at the top. That's also gonna be a very important level of resistance. So if we do go up here towards the upside, I will be looking at this, you know, 20.3 level to either see a rejection up here or break towards the upside and continuation towards the upside. Although I'm not really that bullish just yet. Even though on the small time frames we got some kind of overextended levels. That said, on the downside down here, what often does happen, we do test these levels down here. So this line, like we saw before over here, is very important right now, support line. So if we do break out of this triangle towards the downside, we are looking to test this line over here. And that might give us, you know, something like 19.3, depends on, you know, when we hit that level. This is 19.1, how long time this actually takes, you know, is going to go down, you know, even further, you know, into the future up here, and then fall down some kind of 18 levels. But this is the line that I'm looking at right now to give us support, because even though it's, you know, small time frames line, it's still going to act as a support, because it did act as a support before. Over here you can see very nicely, so it will act as support again next time we come to that level. Will that level actually bounce us towards upside or not? That becomes the big question. How far down? What's going to happen? Are we going to go up? Are we going to go down? Really hard questions to answer, so we are trying to figure out whether we are bullish or bearish. And of course there is a lot of this happening right now in the world. We got, you know, the banks going down, we got, you know, taxes going up, we got all kinds of stuff happening. That said, I actually want to talk the reason I'm making this video is because I actually wanted to talk about, you know, S&P 500. You can see the expanding musical instrument with a channel, Dow Jones expanding musical instrument with a channel, Nasdaq expanding musical instrument with a channel, and all of this is on a weekly time frame. And then we will also talk about the DXY, but this on a 4-hourly time frame, and this is a very ugly chart with a lot of lines, so I will explain a little bit about what this is. So are we bullish or are we bearish? Is Bitcoin gonna go up or Bitcoin gonna go down? I said before, like, I have a theory that if everything crashes towards downside, people will flock to whatever, it's a safe haven, and there is a, you know, place for Bitcoin. All right, so if Bitcoin goes down as well, people might you know, be very reluctant to get into Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin, and you use that as some kind of hedge against everything else. They might go after gold or whatnot. But if there is some kind of inverse correlation between the stock markets and the Bitcoin, then everybody will flock to Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin explodes towards the upside. Now, unfortunately, right now, that's not the case just yet. So we are not quite there yet. And I gotta tell you guys, these kind of charts on S&P 500, Dow Jones, and Nasdaq are actually quite terrible charts. So if you just look at the charts, we don't read any kind of news, we just read the charts, we would say that these charts are actually quite weak. So why are they weak? So if you look here on these expanding musical instruments, expanding, you know, descending wedge, but you know, we like to use our name on this channel. These expanding musical instruments down here, they tend to break towards the upside, just like we did over here. There's nice lines, we broke towards the upside. Now here's the problem. Oftentimes when you get these kind of you know, trends towards the downside, whether that's a channel or expanding musical instrument or some kind of you know, falling wedge, we look after the breakout towards the upside to see how much bullishness there is in the chart. Oftentimes this is something that you want to see. If there is bullishness, if you break outside of, you know, expanding musical instrument or a falling wedge, maybe some kind of falling wedge or some kind of channel towards upside, you want to see some kind of action towards upside. You want to see bullishness kicking in, because this was very, very bullish. Over here we tried to break up, nope, not yet. We went down. Over here we broke up, and then we, you know, kind of came up to the very first resistance level, and we broke down, right? So this move, when stuff breaks out of these wedges towards upside and starts doing this thing over here, this is actually not a good thing. It's actually very, very bearish. So if you're just looking at the charts, not actually listening to the news and just, you know, looking at technicals, we need to assume that this is actually a very bearish move. And this happens right now on S&P 500. You can see here the Dow Jones also is doing this zigzag pattern above the support line, which is also a very bad pattern. Nasdaq also is, you know, just trying up here. It's still inside this, you know, channel that I drew up here, but it's still doing, you know, it's still not bouncing, right? Can this bounce towards upside? Of course it can, guys. Of course this can, for whatever reason, just bounce. But right now it doesn't look that strong, and unless we get that bounce, it doesn't look that strong. So what's gonna happen? So you see on these three charts, we also have this channel towards upside. And actually, you know, there might be other ways to draw the channel. I did, you know, the best, you know, possible way that I actually could draw the channel. It looks nice, and you can see here even the channel is breaking towards downside. Now the channel is on the weekly time frame, so it might be adjusted. There maybe there is, you know, there is yeah, I'm gonna show you that. But the channel is breaking towards downside. So not only did we break out here above the wedge, but we are right now, you know, retesting that really hard without any kind of bounce. And I think it's only a matter of time before this actually breaks towards downside. The same thing goes up here. It's only a matter of time before this breaks towards downside, and Nasdaq as well, only a matter of time before this breaks towards downside. Nasdaq has also this very nice support line up here that I actually might break at the same time down here. The Dow Jones got some kind of line up here, give or take. This was actually a lot better line, but you know, it might be something over here. Let me just see if that might actually be the line up here, you know, give or take. Maybe it's some kind of daily time frame. Let's see on daily time frame. Let's not do that too much. But if it does break down, we might see some kind of lower levels. And on S&P 500 as well up here, we are right now sitting on support. Although the channel did break down, and right now this support is holding. There is another support up here which is very nice, and goes something like this over here, give or take. And this actually creates a very nice channel. Now the other two Dow Jones don't have this triangle. I try to figure out whether the triangle, maybe it goes something like this up here, and then something like this up here, but it's already breaking, right? And over here on Nasdaq, like, you could definitely draw something like this up here, but then, you know, the bottom line, you know, it's kind of sketchy. So it's not actually a triangle. You know, this looks better like a triangle, but you know, you're not touching this wick up here. This is the only thing that actually looks like something like a triangle, especially the bottom support line looks very nice. But it does look like it might actually fall down over here. And the way I'm reading this chart, these three charts, is they are bearish. The biggest reason they are bearish is because we are failing to, you know, bounce. The bounce is failing up here. And bounce needs to happen, but bounce is failing. You're above the support level. You went into consolidation up here, you know, the dump, the bear market, call it whatever you want. You broke out and you are failing to bounce. The failure to bounce is always a bad sign, guys. It's always a bad sign. And over here as well, failure to bounce is always a bad sign. So I'm looking for a bounce. But if that bounce doesn't happen and we do fall back inside this wedge up here, without any kind of, you know, right back up out again, if we do you know, fall down in up here and fail to get it back up there again, there is very important levels of support levels. The previous support down here at 36k, that might actually drop down here at Dow Jones at 28, and the Nasdaq down here as well, down here at 11k or something like 11k down here, right? These support levels are majestically important levels. Not to break. How much is down? This is over here is just 7% down. The Nasdaq, sorry, the Dow Jones is 9% down, and the Nasdaq is down something like, yeah, 7-8%. So they're almost the same distance to these very magical, very important levels of support that we should not, under any circumstances, break. Number one, if you do break it on the downside, below the support line, inside up here, number one, you are inside the, you know, expanding musical instrument. Number two, you are below the support lines, and then you are also below the moving averages. I'm going to show you the moving averages, right? The same thing up here. You get inside the wedge up here, you go back below that. Like, there is no other way to see that, you know, you are going back down to some kind of very low levels. The S&P 500 also right now sitting on support, but if it starts breaking inside up here, breaks the support level, goes below that, we are looking at very low levels down here, right? So that's what getting me worried when it comes to, you know, stock markets and the economy in general. I don't see actually this actually bouncing right now. This bouncing. Now, there is the DXY chart, and I try to look at correlation between the DXY chart on the weekly time frame between the DXY and S&P 500, between the DXY and the Dow Jones, and I don't see that, you know, there is some correlation, but oftentimes when price of DXY goes towards upside, the stocks also go towards upside. So I haven't been, you know, there isn't one-to-one correlation where they are going, you know, opposite directions all the time. So I'm a little bit unsure, you know, what's going to happen if we dump or if we pump up here. So my understanding, and we already learned our lesson to not trust the DXY in which direction Bitcoin will go, because we saw that Bitcoin, you know, dumped while Bitcoin pumped while DXY pumped as well on the same day. You know, everything was playing the same way. and it got me totally screwed. So, you know, I don't want to put too much faith that, you know, if DXY goes down, we're gonna pump, but it does look like it's breaking a little bit, at least short term, towards the downside. So what are we looking at over here? Well, first of all, we got this, you know, rising wedge up here that I've been following for a while, and this rising wedge oftentimes tends to break towards downside. Depends if you're bullish or not. So we did break towards downside over here. We create a new support level. This line up here, we create a new support level. We try to get back inside the wedge. We failed that. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit up here so you can see that we failed that. We failed the third time and went down all the way down here. This line down here is all, you know, this is only just a horizontal, you know, parallel line to these two lines up here. So it's still a level of support. We bounced off of this one, and this is a very, very important thing to do. When you go out of the wedge, you oftentimes try to retest, but sometimes you try to retest the upper level up here. And you can see up here that this move up here retested the resistance line, not the support line down here when you are inside the wedge up here. It retested the upper line, it failed that, went down, consolidated up here on the next support level, broke everything towards the downside. And right now what we are doing up here is retesting this bottom support up here. But look what we also created. 1, 2, 3, triple bottom down here. So if this somehow fails to get back up there and turns around and goes below these three bottoms down here, this might have a bigger drop than usual. I'm saying bigger drop than usual because we don't know actually how big a drop that might actually be, but it might actually be just enough to actually pump us. Whether DXY is going to pump the price of Bitcoin or not, we don't know, but it's important to know where it's going, right? So right now it does look weak. DXY looks very, very weak on the 4-hourly time frame. On the weekly time frame, there is some kind of problems with DXY. I'm going to explain to you why. But at least short term up here, at least short term. Now today's Friday, so this is going to, you know, not do anything for the next couple of days, but on Monday it's going to start doing something again. So at least short term over here, you know, the DXY has a probability to break towards the downside, and I think the probability, you know, breaking down here right now is bigger because we failed over here, and right now the only thing we have to do right now is, you know, maybe do another up here, failure up here, and then go down. And if this does go down, Bitcoin has a good chance to, you know, have a nice bounce. That's like the best case scenario short term that I'm actually seeing on the charts. Now, the problem with DXY, if you're looking for DXY to give us some kind of indication of, you know, what's going to happen next, how the market is going to react and not, we have a problem that DXY has created two lines up here on the chart. The first line is up here, right? That's the support line. But as soon as this trend over here, sorry about that, let's try this again. It created the support line, and the support line acts as support down here. This is on the weekly time frame. The support line actually came very nice down to the support and bouncing right now off the support line that was created all the way back here. So there was some kind of channel. Once we broke that channel towards the upside up here, we increased the speed up here and started going a lot faster towards the upside. So over here you're gonna see that there is another line up here, and this is the problem, guys. This is the problem on the chart, because oftentimes, a lot of times, once you break the support level, you oftentimes you try, you know, create some kind of, you know, support and go up to test it. There was no test over here, guys. There was literally no test. We just dropped down to the support line. So over here, you might actually assume that this might actually go down lower. Now on the 4-hourly, it does seem that this might actually pull down a little bit, but on the bigger time frames up here, oftentimes what happens once you break one support line, go back to the next support line, this support line holds, you oftentimes tend to retest the support line, you know, the resistance line right now, but, you know, previous support line, right? So over here it was acting as a support line on these moves up here, but once we break toward downside, this became a resistance line, and right now it just might go all the way up to 120, depends on when it comes there, right? And this line goes, you know, higher and higher, depends on when we come there, but it might go very, very high if this plays out at the way I actually see it. So on the weekly, on the short-term time frame, like 4-hourly stuff like that, DXY looks like it's gonna have a move towards the downside, which might again give us a very nice pump. On the other hand, on the weekly time frame, just like S&P 500, Dow Jones, S&P 500, Dow Jones, and Nasdaq, they look very, very weak. So the stock market looks weak. The DXY on the weekly time frame looks like it's bouncing off the support. So it doesn't look, you know, bouncing is sign of strength, while failing to bounce is sign of weakness. So stock market showing weakness, DXY showing strength. We can assume then that in longer term, maybe weekly, maybe more, this might actually be quite bad for, you know, stock market. How Bitcoin will, you know, play out, that's a big question. Now, there's a good thing. We are bouncing up here. The level up here, you know, is still, you know, 20.3 or something like that. This is a small time frame. This 15 minutes time frame, 30 minutes, you know, 1 hourly time frame. We still need to get above very important, you know, levels of resistance. You can see up here the 50 moving average, like we're just above, you know, 10-20 moving average. It's just a slight move. Might also just go all the way something like, you know, to 20.1, 20.2, give or take. We are not seeing, you know, the big bullish moves. So if you look at it on the 4 hourly time frame, like this is over here, it's just consolidation up here to move to certain moving averages, right? And we are not even above the 10 moving average on the 4 hourly time frame. Daily time frame, yes, we are extended. We are holding the 200 moving average. On the weekly time frame, we are holding the 200 moving average. We are bouncing off of that. So yes, on some kind of big, you know, big support levels like 20 moving average on the weekly time frame, we are hitting that, and we are trying to get some kind of, you know, support. But you know, it's too early to say whether this support is going to hold. We need to see some kind of bigger time frames like 4 hourly. We need to see some kind of 4 hourly patterns up here, some kind of pattern, something, because this is nothing right now. This is just, you know, small bounce. Literally nothing. We need to see some kind of bottoming pattern, some kind of a, you know, indication that it's gonna, you know, this bottom is holding. Because right now, although we have hit the bottom on the 20 moving average, I'm not saying it's bottom, but although we have hit some kind of, you know, support, it needs to go a little bit more time on a bigger time frames like 4 hourly or even daily time frame. We need to see something. Like over here we had a couple of candles, over here we had a couple of candles. Like you need a couple of candles of something to, you know, be able to predict or try to predict, you know, the next big move towards the upside or downside. Now the good thing is, the reason we can actually get this consolidation phase up here at the bottom is because today is Friday, so stock markets, the CME futures are also closed on weekends, Sunday and Saturday. So we just might get this consolidation that we need during this weekend, and then we can actually predict a lot better whether the next move is towards downside or upside. Hopefully we don't dump on the weekend, because that will create a huge gap. While we are talking about gaps, the gap on CME futures did close, just so you know that. You can see here there was a gap up here around 90k, that's closed. So if people are saying that we gotta go down to close the gap, there is no more gaps beside the gap down at 3k or something like that, right? No, it's actually at 9k. But you know, will we go down to close the 9k gap? I'm a little bit unsure about that. 22 minutes video, I hope you enjoyed that. I got a new chair, so I wanted to test it out. It's really comfortable just sitting here and, you know, relaxing and just looking at the charts. So I'm hoping it's gonna improve my trading by 10x or something like that. Guys, take care, thank you for watching the video, and I'm gonna play the intro for whatever reason, and I'll see you around. Bye bye. Also, I forgot outro. Bybit, you know, degenerate gambling. Bye bye.